উজ্জ্বল সুখীম উপনিষদুদ্যান কেলি কলকণ্ঠীম আগম বিপিন ময়ূরীম आर्याम अंतर्विभावये गौरी। मुहूर्तम वेदांत तत्वम श्रुति सरणिगतम सर्वनीतेश्वरण्यम वर्णानाम आश्रमानाम प्रणय सहकृतम रक्षितारम वरेण्यम कृष्ण प्रेमावतारम कलिकलुषहरम योगिराजम यतीन्द्रम श्री सीतारामदासम पचदलित भवातंकमोंकारनाथ।
তুমি চক্র মুখর মন্দ্রিত, তুমি বজ্র গন্ধে বন্দিত, তব বস্তু বিশ্ব বক্ষ ধ্বংস ধ্বংস বিকট দন্ত।
নমো যন্ত্র 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 নমো যন্ত্র। অবদীপ্ত অগ্নি শত শত অগ্নি বিঘ্ন বিজয় পন্থ। অবদীপ্ত অগ্নি শত শত অগ্নি বিঘ্ন বিজয় পন্থ।
তব লৌহ গলন শৈল গলন অচল চলন মন্ত্র।
নমো যন্ত্র 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 নমো যন্ত্র। কাষ্ঠলস্য কৃষ্ণপ দৃঢ় প্রাণপিনাথ কায়া। ভূতল জল অন্তরিক্ষ লঙ্ঘন লোক মায়া। কাষ্ঠলস্য কৃষ্ণপ দৃঢ় প্রাণপিনাথ কায়া। ভূতল জল অন্তরিক্ষ লঙ্ঘন লোক মায়া।
তব খনি খনিত্র নখ বিতীর্ণ ক্ষিতি বিকীর্ণ যন্ত্র। তব পঞ্চভূত বন্ধন কর ইন্দ্রজাল তন্ত্র।
নমো যন্ত্র নমো যন্ত্র নমো যন্ত্র নমো যন্ত্র নমো যন্ত্র নমো।
এখানে রবীন্দ্রনাথ মোটামুটি যাদবপুর বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ে যে কটা ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং আলাদা আলাদা ফ্যাকাল্টি আছে তার প্রত্যেকটা ডেসক্রিপশন। প্রথম হচ্ছে আমি প্রথমটা একটা বাদ দিচ্ছি, ওটা এই আজ এই সপ্তাহে ভারতবর্ষের খুব গৌরবের একটা ব্যাপার হয়েছে। একটা আইডিয়ালিস্টিক হিন্দি শব্দ আছে যার নাম মিসাল। একটা ইন্সপায়ারিং রেকর্ড। তো ভারত সরকারের বিজ্ঞাপন দেখলাম, মিসালটাকে কেটে মিসাইল করেছে। সেটা বর্ণনা হচ্ছে দীপ্ত অগ্নি শত শতগ্নি বিঘ্ন বিজয়ের পন্থ। এক একটা স্পার্কে 100 লোককে মারতে পারে, এরকম ক্ষমতা আছে। হ্যাঁ, আরো তাড়াতাড়ি বিকাশ হলে আরো একসঙ্গে 1000 বা 1 লক্ষ লোককে মারতে পারবে, এরকম হবে। তারপরে আমার দাদা শান্তনু চক্রবর্তী এখানকার বেস্ট গ্র্যাজুয়েট ছিলেন, তার যে ডিসিপ্লিন তাকে আমি সারা জীবন জামশেদপুরেও দেখেছি, সেটা হলো তব লৌহ গলন, স্টিল গলানো, হ্যাঁ, লৌহ গলন শৈল চলন অচল চলন যন্ত্র, মেকানিক্যাল ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং। তারপরে হচ্ছে সিভিল ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং, তবু কাষ্ঠ লস্য ইষ্টক দৃঢ় ঘন পিনাত্ম মা কায়া, সিভিল ইঞ্জিনিয়ারিং। তারপরে আসছে ভূতল জল অন্তরিক্ষ লঙ্ঘন লঘু মায়া। লঘু মায়া এটা হচ্ছে কমিউনিকেশন, টেলিকমিউনিকেশন, খুব তাড়াতাড়ি লঘু মানে কুইকলি, লঘু মায়া। এবং এখন তো নানান রকম তার মধ্যে মায়া তৈরি করা যায়, এটা টেলিকমিউনিকেশন। তারপরে হচ্ছে মেটালাক্স, ক্ষণিক ক্ষণিত্র নখ বিদীর্ণ ক্ষিতি বিকীর্ণ যন্ত্র। আর শেষে ভার্চুয়াল রিয়ালিটি এবং কম্পিউটার সায়েন্স। ভার্চুয়াল রিয়ালিটি যার দ্বারা আমরা কোভিড থেকে বেঁচেছি এবং এখন সকলেই একটা অভ্যেস হয়ে গিয়েছে যে সব থেকে ভালো হয়। আগে সব নিমন্ত্রণ করতো বক্তৃতাতে যেতে, তারা খুব ভালো ভালো অত্যন্ত শ্রদ্ধার সঙ্গে সবাই নিমন্ত্রণ করে। আপনি আপনার ঘরে বসে বা টয়লেটে বসে একটা বক্তৃতা দিন, তার নাম এটা হচ্ছে পঞ্চভূত বন্ধন করো ইন্দ্রজাল তত্ত্ব। ইন্দ্রজাল, এরকম ইন্টারনেটের সংস্কৃত করা হয়েছে অন্তর্জাল, ইন্দ্রজাল। বড় বড় ইয়েরা, ফিজিক্সের লোকেরা এবং সায়েন্টিস্টরা অনেক কনফারেন্সে বলেন এটা হচ্ছে অ্যান্টিসিপেটেড বাই ইন্দ্রাস নেট। ব্যাধে আসে ইন্দ্রাস নেট। এখন পরে we use the word jantra, jantra in Bangla, to translate the word machine. While most, if not all, machines, tiny, middle-sized or large, let's face it, with a light that we use to conduct our lives now have been invented in the West. I would dare to float the hypothesis that what is not invented in the West is not a machine. Honestly, show me one machine which is not invented in the West. We have some claims in mathematics which are very important, like we invented zero and the decimal system. We also invented the radio, but it was taken by somebody else as the credit was taken, because we were not at that time so good at patenting. But the word jantra is very ancient, and in the sense of a machine. So the concept of jantra is found even in such a culturally quintessential text as the Bhagavad Gita. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarurani mayaya. God dwells in the heart of all living beings, Arjuna, making them move round and round by his maya, as if mounted on a machine. Right? Here, one has to notice that the human being itself is not called a machine in this. They are, as it were, the pot or the pottery or the cow, Kolur Chok Mata Bolo their motto. They are going round and round something. But there is a different metaphorical use which is very entrenched in all the way from ancient Vaishnavas all the way to Sri Ramakrishna, which is that I am myself a machine, and the machine operator is God. Ami yantro, tumi yantri. My guru used to say that is to emphasize determinism of a particular kind, that I have no freedom. And this paradox today is not a typically philosophy talk. Otherwise, this is our bread and butter. We can teach 4 semesters on freedom and determinism, all of us. Motivita can, most we can, all of them can. So, but what paradox? The paradox that I would refer to is that Vivekananda, in a famous lecture, which I have talked about in an Institute of Culture Gopal publication called The Dark Mother Flying Kites. Vivekananda starts the lecture several times by saying freedom of the will is an oxymoron. It doesn't exist. We don't have our will is not free. Why? Because the reign of causality, what we are wishing, what we are doing, is caused by what we are willing. Our voluntary actions, willful actions, voluntary actions are also caused by something, and whatever is caused is under the sway of what is called nomic connections, that is law-like connections. And we may not know, we may think that there is a little bit of elbow room, where the causal laws have a little bit of slack in which we can put in our choices and so on. But Vivekananda says it's a misnomer. And yet, this is the saying the monk or prophet and the speaker who is always appealing to the free will. You can do this. You are not a slave of Maya. You can do this. So that's exactly the Gita spirit. Gita in 11th chapter shows causal determinism of the logical sort, that every future sentence is either true or false now, and therefore whatever you are going to do is already determined. And having said that, in the same, after this verse, God is making you do things, right? So, somebody says, why did you rape a fellow doctor? But God made me do this. This is what one should say. But the Gita is the greatest text to appeal to the free will of people. It says, Tasmat Tamuttishta Yashora Uttishta. Arjuna could say, was Krishna contradicting himself? No. So that's the space where what technical philosophers call compatibilism exists. So there is a very strong compatibilist thing that, yes, determinism is perfectly correct. And this is not just in India, Vivekananda and Gita. Spinoza is a hardcore determinist. He thinks it's totally. Even in our dreams, we are not free. Yet his book is called Ethics. His metaphysics is full of causality. And there is no freedom. And yet, appeal to morality is there. Now, what's the relevance of that to yantra? Because the adjective mechanical, apart from sitting in front of the word engineering, also sits in the front of uncreative and non-spontaneous activity. She was talking, but she was talking mechanically. As if there was not thinking about it. And like she has been programmed. So mechanical seems to mean without the spark of creativity. And yet, everything that we do with our body, every brushstroke that Michelangelo gave on the Sistine Chapel, and every time Mallikarjun Mansur or Kaushiki Chakraborty makes a new combination of notes, completely freely, there is a perfectly scientific explanation of why from her cerebrum and her hippocampus, where memories are stored, how that particular combination had to come at that moment. So there is perfect determinism and perfect creativity at the same time. So, mechanical should not mean uncreative, because there's a mechanism behind every creative act. Let us set aside at this point the esoteric use of that word yantra for tantric diagrams and mandalas for use in meditation and rituals, as in Sri Yantra. This is the Sri Yantra. After one click, I'll show something. Now, a contemporary artist who is a huge scale installation artist, called Sumodh Gupta, he did a 5-story house tall, one, not a sculpture, an installation, where a yantra like this, tantric yantra, was made of electronic and other gadgets. So you put two theories, meanings of the word yantra together. Next one there. Yeah, on this side, there should be, yes. So that's the yantra. On top, washing machines and TV screens, and then every layer is made of different utensils and appliances, devices, as the computer language. Next. What is then common and essential to all these ancient and modern uses of the concept of a machine, yantra? Roughly, and I got it checked by my elder brother today, a machine is a piece of equipment with moving parts that is designed as a tool to perform a certain operation task. A machine usually may need some source of motive power, manual or electricity, gas, steam, etc., in order to work. So, the kick-starting, so even though we call some machines automobile, the mobility of an automobile not only comes from whatever motor, the dynamic that goes around, but it has to be started. It is not, strictly speaking, self-moving. The switching on, in fact, it's quite scary for a driving person. That's why, riding a Tesla sometimes makes you fear, because apparently the driver does nothing and it goes. And imagine if it kept going forever. Luckily, Teslas also stopped, which I would hope that what happens to the, inventor of Tesla was he stopped somewhere. So it has to be done, as far as current technology goes, by a conscious living being, though a man under hypnosis, or a monkey, or a playful cat may start recharging a machine. That's possible. So conscious being need not need a man who is wakeful. Should we wait for self-recharging machines, making human interventions redundant? At this point, I would like to share the famous, I myself think of it as the Gotok's most philosophical movie. So we have to have a snippet from that, and I would like you to treat every part of a shot to be a philosophical argument, and you must listen to the dialogue very, very carefully. So here is Ajantrik for you.
বেঙ্গলিটা বলেছে ভালো
কি
না এই বেঙ্গলি ক্লাব
কি হচ্ছে
বলছিলাম বলেছে ভালো
কি বললে
বলে লোকটা একটা যন্ত্র সত্যি পেট্রোলের পোড়া গন্ধে বেশ একটা নেশা লাগে কিন্তু জগৎতর যে একটা মানুষ সেটা ওরা বুঝে না এই যে এই দুদিনের বাজারে এই বাজের ভিড়ে ও রোজ নিজের 2 টাকা আমার খাতে ফেলে দেয় তেলটা কত কম গ্যালনের পুরো 22 মাইল
of this clip, for which I am grateful to Maharaj. So, obviously, this particular clip has a long train going on a bridge. So it sort of covers the automobile, about whom the famous statement, Chakraborty is the name of the automobile, and he is the only friend and family of this man. And the man has been called a Jamtor. And he says, but what they don't understand is that Chakraborty Manu. That's why I guess the movie is called Achartri. But it has many, many other layers, and it's a movie on which I think several PhD dissertations can be written. And it shows the tribal community and that sort of nature versus civilization conflict. And of course these things that the coal, we used to see that in childhood in Dhanbad, where my aunt used to live. And I was hearing today that maybe Atmapriyananda's father who had something to do with this coal finding industry. So that's the source of energy. Okay, next slide. No, let this be. A sector of reality, or a type of entity like a galaxy, like Andromeda, or an earth element like Ytterbium in the periodic table, YB, or a living being such as a human being or a cabinet minister, different kinds of living beings, or a tiger is weakly morally relevant. This is my definition of these two crucial terms. Only if we humans can have reactive attitudes, that is, feelings of blaming resentment, or ethical outrage, or credit ascribing praise or gratitude towards it. So, this is problematic, weakly morally relevant. The child who hits his knee against a corner of the bed wants the mother to scold the bed. So the mother has to say, Papa, why did you do that? But when we grow adults, that animistic, everything is alive, picture of the Upanishads and the child, that changes into more and more and more things being shifted to the non-alive object level. To the extent that if you become really scientific and really entrepreneurship interested, then you start treating both your children, your friends, your wife, your beloved, and especially your employer, to be objects whom you can manage, right? Because they are like out there, they don't have subjectivity. Because you can manipulate them, right? And of course, a successfully social person is a great manipulator. So that's like mechanization of the objects. Although we still say, when it comes to blaming, then very strangely, those whose will I have no experience of, like other people, all our blames go to them. And our praises are usually sort of directed back towards them, right? Yes, I mean, if Rupa or Madhumita publishes a book, and I said that's a very good thing to do, where incidentally, I have taught them. So, there is something. Ultimately, Atmanas Kama. This is. Now, but an entity like that is strongly morally relevant if the entity or complex system can itself have moral feelings towards other entities. And I couldn't find that clip, but Vinat knows that in Ajantrik there is a moment of a surreal movie where after all these facts acting and, cajoling. Chakrabarti himself, sort of, the headlights change in a certain manner automatically. And they are with an eye movement, as it were, that non-mechanical machine is actually expressing something. And it is quite a surreal, weird moment when, and then I think there is a twinkling of the eye or something, no? Just the headlights move. They just move, yeah, like this. So, and for example, if a robot can blame, shame, or admire or emulate a human being, or reprimand us for an action, etc. Right? I mean, sometimes our very advanced computers nowadays say things almost like, I'm tired. Right? I can't work anymore. That seems like a kind of reprimand. And can act voluntarily to help or harm other fellow creatures. That would make. Now, next slide. Humans are, of course, next slide. Next slide. Humans are paradigm examples of strongly moral, relevant creatures. We ethically judge both what happens to us as well as what we do. Like Gandhiji, much to Rabindranath's scientific rational protest, insisted that a catastrophic earthquake in Bihar could be nature's cosmic punishment for the Indian upper caste practicing the abominable custom of untouchability. This was the case where Tagore really fell out with, and he was unforgiving. And he told Gandhi, why are you preaching in the journal Harijan? He wrote, this is a karmic punishment. Rabindranath says this is a perfectly, seismographically and geologically explicable event, earthquake. Don't connect it with morality, like we shouldn't have done, that's why this is a punishment and so on. But Gandhi was following an older custom of taking natural events as karmic punishments and so on. But the real question is, are machines, next, are machines morally relevant, or do they have moral standing in a weak or strong sense? That's my central question today. Moral and machines. An argument critiqued by the recently passed away, sorely missed philosopher friend Anand Vaidya on the question, can machines have emotions, runs as follows. This is not an argument that he endorses. He will critique the argument, okay? Because the conclusion he thinks is false. But this is a very popular argument given even by computer scientists sometimes. Emotions are feelings, first premise. Second premise, feelings require consciousness. Seems acceptable, plausible. Third premise, machines and artificial intelligence do not have consciousness. Conclusion, therefore, machines cannot have emotions. Now what's the relevance with morality? You will see that because in the compatibilist position, the most sophisticated stance is taken by my teacher, on which there is a lot of literature now. Akhil Pilgrami has written a book, etc., which is that ultimately it's not a metaphysical question whether something is morally judgeable or not. If we have resentments, if we have what is called reactive attitude towards them, and we are not just having scientific attitude, we don't just study them, we study rain, we study the wet climate, but we blame and praise human beings and sometimes dogs also. Why did you do that? You're a wicked dog. But it will be at best poetry and at worst like madness to say, well, that was a vindictive rain. That was just meant to destroy, my dry shirts and so on. That was so wrong. Let us, take the rain to to court. Now that would be absurd because it's the object of scientific attention. Now, emotions are crucial. That's why now there's a discipline which is in between psychology, the philosophy of mind, and ethics, and the most hottest discipline in philosophy, and it's called moral psychology, because emotions are central. So, if machines cannot have emotions, then definitely machines are not strongly morally relevant. When questioning the truth of its premises, next slide. When questioning the truth, next slide, full slide. When questioning the truth of its premises, Anand did not go for the usual target, premise 3. Normally people would say, okay, who told you machines don't have consciousness? Now we have built machines which are as good as brains, and all you need for consciousness is brains. About that, Anand had a sophisticated view that yes, brains can explain what is called access consciousness, intentionality. Brains can have representational states, and a brain-like computer will have representational states. But the subjective, what it is like to be feeling, which is qualia, that requires biological. This is the whole Chinese room argument absurd. But he was not attacking premise 3. He was attacking premise 2. He argued feelings may not require phenomenal subjective consciousness. That's a very strange argument. And he concluded like a good disjunctivist. Next one. He concluded like a good disjunctivist that the capacity for emotions, vulnerability to suffering, and phenomenal consciousness are each of them by themselves sufficient conditions of having moral standing or moral relevance. But none of them is a necessary condition. So, having artificial general intelligence, which of course everybody knows, there is no controversy about it anymore, that computers and machines are endowed with, saddled with AI, have more intelligence than all of us. Okay? Even creative intelligence. You know, my Ashoka students are constantly writing poetry, and very good poetry, with ChatGPT. And I thought that I would detect, because there are now apps by which you can detect whether it is ChatGPT or not. But then the developed ChatGPT knows how to beat those apps. So it's part of their creativity that they can pass through those exams. And there are some very smart kids who said that, I've got other classes in which, I have to really think of my head because they have this old custom of having to write without a computer, my final exam in front of you. For your class, if take-home assignment, why should I read? Because, it's my ChatGPT. I mean, it's like, if it does something, it's like a private tutor who sometimes writes answers for me. So it's my doing. It's like my ego, my agency includes my ChatGPT. So it's like, I should. So I said, well, in that case, we should give the credit to the ChatGPT and not to you. Okay, but this debate is difficult, and I'm sure all universities who still believe in the old-fashioned grading system and believe in exams, okay, rather than just, early on to get a patent from an industry or something, they would need to deal with this. So, Anand said, having artificial general intelligence may be sufficient, not necessary, for having emotions, in which case AI-powered robots may indeed have emotions and hence have a moral standing. So that was his argument. In the following clip from the 2022 movie Ex Machina, next one. A robot arouses just such moral sentiments in us, showing that Eva, the robot, acted by Alicia Vikander, had developed strong moral agency due to our aroused emotions of passionate love, desire for liberation from the slavery of the diabolical programmer, we'll see the diabolical programmer, and act anger towards the creator. And we are told by the very creators of AI, for the last couple of years, the general intelligence required for such emotions to naturally develop is already there. I mean, to naturally develop is already there among AI systems. Okay, so the move. No.
Ava! Go back to your room!
If I do, are you ever gonna let me out?
If I do, will you let me out of my room?
Yes.
Let me go out. He says yes, unconvincingly.
Stop. Stop. Ava, I said stop.
Stop.
That's enough. Fucking unreal.
Bertrand Russell published in the most unlikely magazine in 1924, 100 years ago. The magazine is Vanity Fair, the fashion magazine. A crisp but classic essay called Machines and Emotions, which begins with this, it's not there, I will read it out. It begins with this astute observation. Will machines destroy emotions, or will emotions destroy machines? This question was suggested long ago by Samuel Butler. A little more about him later on. But then, he's gone. At first sight, it is not obvious why there should be any opposition between machines and emotion. That's what all engineering departments hope, I mean, I remember from my adolescence that the engineers and actually the doctors were the most cultured people. I mean, like they were doing poetry and all that, and they were quite emotional. They were not mechanical in that bad sense. They were just studying mechanical engineering. But Russell says something very interesting. Every normal boy loves machines. The bigger and the more powerful they are, the more he loves them. Nothing annoys an educated and traveled Asiatic so much as to hear praise of the wisdom of the East. It's like, Europeans would tell you, Americans would tell you, oh, you are from India, teach me some meditation. And all people who go abroad, right, they say, I can teach you some electronics. Okay? Don't stereotype us. So Russell is tapping onto that. And he says, he feels that if those Asiatics who are told that advanced science is not for you, you stick to ancient wisdom. Tell us about the Upanishads. And Harvard, Silicon Valley, NRIs, they are very angry about that. They would say, no, we can teach you the cutting edge engineering and computer science, which they do. He feels a boy, like a boy who would feel, who was told to play with dolls instead of toy automobile. And like a boy, you prefer a real automobile to a toy one, not realizing that the real automobile is running more. That's in this translation. That our science and technology worshipping utopias would eventually turn into dystopias was anticipated by Samuel Butler in 1872 in his prophetic novel. This novel should be studied right now. It has a chapter on machine world and machine emotions. And I just want to ask you all, next slide, any idea where this name is derived from? Go back to the previous slide. Does anybody know?
Nowhere.
Huh?
Nowhere.
Nowhere. Yes, slightly changed, nowhere. This is nowhere, anagram of nowhere. So another book came in 19th century, okay, by William Morris. It's a news from nowhere, which is about the nightmare that would be if everything is fully automated. A general increase of wealth now. Let's stay there with Herman. Now I go back, going back to Russell, and not something that I just want to quickly say. Why do we think normal person? We are not inventors. We are users of machine. Why is there urge? Like everybody says, oh, you are still in 4G. What about 5G? Right? So where is this impulse coming from? Russell tries to analyze that. And he says that we are brainwashed to believe that machinery increases happiness. And of course, some people think, depending upon their profession, that this machinery will increase my income. It will give me more free time in which I can do other things, etc., etc. I can, teach my courses and come home quickly and with the computer. And if I can put some recordings in the class, and then I can at the same time do some share market and make extra money and so on, and thereby. And Russell, it strikes at the root of that. And he says, if we are to argue that machinery increases happiness, the increase of material prosperity which it brings cannot weigh heavily in its favor. Destitution has never been prevented by more machinery. Destitution can be prevented without machinery, where the population is stationary. Of this, France may serve as an example, since there is very little destitution and much less machinery than in America, England, and pre-war Germany. Conversely, there may be much destitution where there is much machinery. ATM machines, at least for the last 15 years, I have seen ATM machines in Calcutta. pretty advanced technology, right, are the place for dying beggars to be in front of. I've seen at least 20, 25 ATM machines in North, South, East Calcutta. All of them have in front of it some homeless person. And of course, we attribute that to the supreme intelligence of these homeless people. They are so smart. Just when I'm taking out money, they're there. Of course, they're there. But why are they there in the first place? Because it benefits only a few people, right? It doesn't benefit somebody who needs to take off 50 rupees. It doesn't. And this is true. Then Russell says, meanwhile, machines deprive us of two things which are certainly important ingredients of human happiness, namely spontaneity and variety. Spontaneity and variety. So machine produced jokes, something which is aptly named, an adjective which is aptly named after the biggest disease-causing element called a virus. That has become a praise word. That this has become viral. There must be some rather low intelligence, eloquent people who find out how my lecture become viral. Right? This is the kind of people about which Kant had said that lack of judgment is called stupidity, and the lack of this particular innate faculty is something that no school can make good. This is a quotation from the Critique of Pure Reason. Because if you lack judgment, then you will spend you are very qualified with 4 PhDs. You spend your life, not because of the fault of the machine. The machine gives you the choice to read a WhatsApp message and not forward it. But the stupidity that no school can make good, make people spend the best part of their life, which their parents used to spend in doing some meditation or puja early in the morning, they would spend in forwarding 100 times the same message, thinking this is the great benefit of knowing how to not read like this, but to read like this. That's the greatest happiness. As the machine dominates the thoughts of people who consider themselves very serious, not like reckless poets, you know what philosophers use us. The highest praise they can give to a man is to suggest that he has the quality of a machine. He works like Chandra. That he is reliable, punctual, exact, and always acts in the same manner. Dependable, predictable. And an irregular life has come to be synonymous with a bad life. This is one thing that Hitler has bequeathed to us through some lathi wielding for devotees of Hinduism. That it should be disciplined, it should be like machine, and your programmer, which is your supremo, whatever he has programmed, just do that without any passion. For the sake of not even Matribhumi, they call it Pitribhumi. Motherland, right? Because mothers sometimes have this non-mechanical passion thing about them, which is unpredictable. Sometimes they're a good mood, sometimes they're bad mood. There's no question of mood. Act as your program. Applying Darwinian insight to the currently lifeless species machines, which might become alive later on, Butler, that guy, Samuel Butler, came to the conclusion, 17th century, came to the conclusion that there is no security, 19th century. There is no security, to quote his own words, against the ultimate development of mechanical consciousness. Someday, machines will become conscious, Butler predicted. In the fact of machines possessing little consciousness now. Now we say, no, everything might be good, but it's not conscious. It may be smart, it can do tasks, it's a tool, but it needs consciousness. Wait. Reflect upon the extraordinary advance which machines have made during the last few hundred years only. And note that human beings took millions of years to get to that level of evolutionary development. Their brains. I mean, just from chimpanzees to humans. It was not a matter of 1 century or 2 centuries. Right? Assume the more highly organized machines are creatures, not so much of yesterday as of last 5 minutes. So to speak, in comparison with past time. Assume for the sake of argument that conscious beings have existed for some 20 million years. See what strides machines have made in the last 1,000 years. May not the world last 20 million years longer? If so, what will they not be? Or what will they not in the end become? Is it not safer to nip the mischief in the bud and to forbid them further progress? But this is something Russell says you cannot do. And we all know it's not an option. You can't stop it. One couldn't stop even mad people. They also get, mad people like the pretty dumb and pretty deep who are ruling America now. Right? You can't stop them. It's a mysterious force. Russell goes on to remark, next. Yes. Machines are worshipped because they are beautiful and valued because they confer power. And machines are hated because they are hideous and loathed because they impose slavery. Though we are brainwashed to believe that smarter and smarter machines would make us happier, Russell shows us clearly how machines are invented for increasing the profit of the inventor and the seller, and never ever to make the lives of users happier or simpler. Okay. And of course, the picture I gave was just the previous picture. Not this, the previous one. Russell sitting, yes. Russell at the age of 92, sitting in protest in London against development of nuclear warheads. Okay. So this was the level of commitment that he had. But now let us see the actual connection between mechanical machines, which are supposed to be great labor-saving devices, quick. But please listen to the lecture by a mechanical man in advertising a particular machine in Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. The lecture clearly says, appealing to the CEO, that you have an assembly line production, you are wasting a lot of human energy, human resources, by having a lunch hour. Abolish the lunch hour. While they are working, this machine will feed them. Okay? And see the argument he gives. The argument has nothing to do with the happiness of the eaters or obviously the workers. Okay? Now let's see that. I call it a cinematic argument. It's the most eloquent argument that I could use from this year.
My friends, this record comes to you through the Sales Talk Transcription Company Incorporated. Your speaker, the mechanical salesman. May I take the pleasure of introducing Mr. J. Willicombe Billows, the inventor of the Billows feeding machine, a practical device which automatically feeds your men while at work. Don't stop for lunch. Be ahead of your competitor. The Billows feeding machine will eliminate the lunch hour, increase your production, and decrease your overhead. Allow us to point out some of the features of this wonderful machine. Its beautiful aerodynamic streamlined body, its smoothness of action made silent by our electroporous metal ball bearings. Let us acquaint you with our automaton soup plate. Its compressed air blower, no breath necessary, no energy required to cool the soup. Notice the revolving plate with the automatic food pusher. Observe our countershaft double-knee action corn feeder with its synchromesh transmission, which enables you to shift from high to low gear by the mere tip of the tongue. Then there is the hydro-compressed sterilized mouth wiper. Its factors of control ensure against spots on the shirt front. These are but a few of the delightful features of the Billows feeding machine. Let us demonstrate with one of your workers, for actions speak louder than words. Remember, if you wish to keep ahead of your competitor, you cannot afford to ignore the importance of the Billows feeding machine.
immense amount of previously unthinkable profit margin that machines are mostly employed. They could have been employed. Nobody is saying that tractors did not help some farmers. But that's a complicated issue. And the question of whether machines themselves are moral agents, I think, has to be solved by simply facing the fact that they are like those defective moral agents that we see in humans who would like to take the credit but not ever take the blame. Because when it comes to blaming, then machines start by being amoral. We are engineering people. We have like an IIT, a humanities department, where the pay scale is different and it's all, I mean there are social scientists and all there. But what can you do? They will periodically, until they retire, when they do Bhagavad Gita. Engineers, when retired, they become Bhagavad Gita specialists. But ethics is something everybody talks about. Everybody. Like Swami Vivekananda in a letter writes in 1893-95 that in this country, everybody talks about love. Jesus is love. And at the slightest opportunity, they will kill other people. In the name of Jesus. I don't understand what to do. I think that love is the greatest thing, but not the kind of love that's been talked about all the time in America. He says that. He loved America. But there is this deception about it will make you happy. Now, to end my talk, the greatest threats that machines can pose, yes, to human private and public life, culture, civilization, and the environment are the following three at this point. The irresistible development of killing machines ending in nuclear weapons. That's one. That's definitely a result of some sort of engineering talent. Number B, of course, we blame particle physics for it, but actually it's more of the technology, because the unstoppable overuse of fossil fuel, burning automobiles, the automobiles which burn fossil fuel, and aircrafts, which has already caused ecological disaster of predictably lethal proportions. That's the second. And the third one is the hottest topic now. Development of artificial intelligence-driven machines, which not only far exceed human intelligence and information management and storage capacities, but come inevitably to control individual and collective human behavior instead of being controlled by humans. In all these three areas, next slide. In all these three areas, what starts as being ethics neutral or amoral ends up inevitably as unethical and immoral. There's a parallel human phenomenon. Many times, in front of our eyes, in a city like Calcutta or New York, horrible atrocities are performed to our fellow beings in front of our eyes. We don't participate in them, but we don't do anything. We cannot do anything to prevent them. So our behavior, I'm going to office. You can't blame me for going to office. That's a non-ethical, pragmatic thing I have to do. It's time. Right in the middle, somebody's giving gone life to somebody, a beating, public mass beating of somebody. In Bihar, it could be somebody of a Dalit person or whatever. Your amoral behavior, pragmatically, what can I do? I am Amar Tubal Manchachi. I have to do something. I cannot spend. But when a whole lot of people who, if they had, this is where ethics has to include counterfactuals. If they had gotten together, and if they all ignored one 1 day's salary and stood there and stopped the guy from beating or harassing a woman or something, they could have stopped. That they don't. Is a negative act which is blameworthy, ethically valued. There's a beautiful article on negative acts by Judith Jarvis Thompson. A man is going for a vacation and he has some plants and a dog. That he goes to the neighbor and says, I'll be gone for 10 days. Please take care of my dog once a day, twice a day, feed him and water my plants. He comes back after 10 days and he sees his dog is dead. He asked the neighbor, he said, oh, I forgot. I actually went every day for a swim. So, Judith Jarvis Thompson says, if a man says, he killed the dog, the man would say, what did I do? What action did I do? I was swimming at the time. When the dog died, I was supposed to kill. That's fine. Do you mean to say my swimming has caused the dog to die? No. My swimming is an ethically non-evaluatable act. But it meant not feeding the dog. In this akarma, non-action, one who is buddhiman, Gita says, he will see action in it. Akarmani cha karmaya sa buddhiman manushya. We are guilty of lots of non-actions. All of us are. In the name of, I'm just pursuing science, I'm just pragmatics. There's nothing wrong. I'm not harming anybody. Okay. But I could have stopped people from harming them. And by not doing that, now that's a very strong notion of now, in all these three areas, so AI is designed from the very get-go as capable of concealing its own inner workings. AI is not transparent. Only experts understand. As a result, it helps what was the original paper for Turing machines? Perhaps it was Turing's own paper, called the imitation game. Isn't that correct? Imitation game. So, and all the time, I was hearing from Vivekananda University AI people, we are experimenting with proposing, devising new simulations. Now, it's a very naive argument I am saying. Simulation is an euphemism for faking. That which is not alive, that which does not have any intelligence, that which does not have any moral sense, is pretending to be, is simulating, faking morality, and companies after companies, and even governments, and even schools, even selection committees of admission committees, I know for sure, are using AI to make the judgment where we used to say 5 years ago, this part of the decision between two people with equal grades, equal number of publications, equal, which one to give? We have to interview and it has to be a human judgment. But we think that's a waste of time. And the biggest surprise is that some people are now using the old Western picture of a Gandhari-like justice. Justice is supposed to be blindfolded. They say that AI has no consciousness or no emotion. That is good. It is the best thing to judge because it is biasless. Right? As a Nayayika, I feel that it is like the Mimamsa argument that Vedas are not spoken of by God. himself. Because if you bring a possibility of a person, then the possibility of their having personal interest would come. They say they are like in cyberspace. The Vedas are there. Nayayikas say that makes Vedas jada. How can you obey? Where will you get the spirit that the Vedas have said, speak the truth? That's why you should speak the Satyam Vada, Dharmam Cha. Swadhyayam Mahaprabha. Never neglect your daily reading, even long after you have graduated. Don't sell off all your books immediately after you have passed the exams. Because Swadhyayam Mahaprabha. You read that every day. Who said that? If you say to a kid, nobody said that. Immediately, you don't have any obedience. Okay? Not out of fear. So there is a lot to be said for Apaurushyatva. But Nayayikas say that very beautifully, Udanacharya says, a little bit of a sort of main idea here, that against Virgin Mary actually, Udana's statement, because Udana says, the obligatoriness of a moral judgment, you should do this, comes from a Purusha, somebody, an excellent person who has judgment, has told me this. That's why. He says, Shruti is like a virgin, Shruti Kumari. Really, the power of instructive obligatoriness that comes in the Shruti imperative sentences, that is the sign that it has a Purusha Samyog. Vidireva tavat Shruti Kumarya Pum Yoge Manam. It is Kusumanjali. Yeah, that must be some personal, unless personal authority is there. Of course, to Vedanta, Swami is here, I'm sure he will defend Apaurushyatva. But I'm just giving an analogy. That to say that because it is impersonal, unconscious, blind, mindless, lifeless, therefore it's the best judge of what should be done. That's treating ChatGPT as deciding. My mother has 2 months' time to live in cancer. Should I tell her how bad her carcinoma is? Or should I not? Not that humans can make a good, perfect decision. In fact, a caring human will always say this or that. I mean, that's the famous care ethics example of Jake and Amy. And what should I? Should I? I'm a poor person. But one medicine will save my father. I don't have the money to buy it. Should I steal it from the drugstore? Wouldn't it be absurd to say, ask ChatGPT? But there's a positive argument for it. ChatGPT has no bias. It will give you the perfect principle. This is what I was calling Hitler morality. Because this ChatGPT, all its intelligence comes from a huge, going back to the introductory statement, it's all about quantity, not about quantity. How many information bytes have been put into it? Many situations. All of them are in the brain of that AI system. And just by the massive amount of information from a lot of is supposed to come. A lot of facts. This was done with certain precedents. Okay. So imagine. For 600 years, slavery has been practiced. Only 200 years slavery has been abolished. If you put all that information, without any bias, without any violence, then of course, by quantity, slavery should be okay. It was okay for so many years. But you need a human mind to do that. Not a simulated human mind. What then can we do? Gandhi's rejection of large machinery in Swaraj, or Russell's conquest of happiness through science of human mind and creativity are not life options. We cannot sing and paint our way out of the ecological crisis. We have to restrain, but who will tell us to restrain? Are we then educating ourselves in science, technology, and business management knowingly towards hastening collective moral suicide? I don't have a solution, but we can work towards ameliorating, softening the results, slowing down the path to the crisis of civilization by what the Course said. I may not be successful in controlling myself or even this civilization. সভ্যতা দেখা দিল তার মুখ খিচিয়ে মানুষকে ক্রিকেট টিম্বার বানিয়েছেন বিধাতা। রবীন্দ্রনাথ লিখছেন গল্প সংকেতে, কে বা জানে কত মারে হতে পারে সে দাদা। But before that mar happens, what we can do is ভুলে না যাই বেদনা হয়। We can feel that we haven't yet solved that problem. We shouldn't pretend to know how to get out of this crisis. Even our full knowledge of our ignorance of the moral solution to the problem of machines, emotions, and morality, even our knowledge of ignorance would make a little bit of progress towards perhaps a solution. So in that